Imagine you are standing in line at like a really crowded coffee shop. Or maybe you're navigating the rush hour foot traffic at a busy train station.
Yeah, totally chaotic environments.
Right, and you look up and you lock eyes with a total stranger. But it is not just a passing glance, you know. In that brief window, you feel this profound, undeniable, almost gravitational pull.
Like the air in the room completely shifts.
Exactly, the air shifts. Maybe you even end up sharing a few words, a quick laugh, a moment of genuine electricity. And then, before you can ask for a name or a number, the crowd surges, the train doors close. Or they just turn the corner.
And they are just gone.
Absolutely no way back to them.
Yeah.
You are just standing there holding your coffee and they have vanished into the ether.
It is wildly disorienting.
It really is. So today we are taking a deep dive into this incredible piece of writing called The Ghost of What If: Understanding Sudden Obsession. Our mission here is to really explore this highly specific, visceral human experience. We want to unpack that intense, obsessive pull of someone you barely even know.
Right, because it is far more common than people like to admit. It feels really isolating when you are in the thick of it. But we are going to look at this not just as some romantic movie trope.
Yeah.
We are looking through the hard lenses of the neuroscience of attraction and the deep psychology of obsession. Because what is happening in the brain when that stranger walks away is actually a cascade of highly complex, incredibly stubborn cognitive processes.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the immediate aftermath of that disappearance is what really fascinates me. What exactly is happening inside our heads when that person just evaporates?
What?
Because to me, a fleeting encounter like that feels exactly like watching the first half of the most incredible, mind-blowing movie trailer you have ever seen. You are completely hooked.
Completely.
And right before the title card drops, right before you find out what the movie is actually about, the power goes out in the entire building. You are sitting in the dark, the screen is black, and your brain absolutely hates that unfinished loop.
The power outage analogy is actually a great starting point for the neurology of this. What's fascinating here is how the source material explicitly points us toward the neuroscience of attraction, particularly the brain's relationship with dopamine and incomplete data.
Dopamine, right.
Yeah. When you have that initial spark with someone, your brain is flooded with a cocktail of neurochemicals, most notably a massive surge of dopamine.
Which we usually associate with rewards.
Right, yes, exactly. We often think of dopamine simply as the reward chemical, the thing that makes us feel good when we eat chocolate or win a game. But in reality, dopamine is much more accurately described as a seeking chemical.
Oh, interesting. A seeking chemical.
It is the neurochemical of anticipation. It drives you to figure out what comes next.
So it's less about the satisfaction of the moment and more about the biological drive to gather more information.
Yes, exactly.
Your brain is essentially revving the engine, getting ready to seek out more connection, more data, more of this person.
Precisely. Your brain, it's a prediction machine. It thrives on pattern recognition and closure. In a standard scenario, you meet someone, you feel the spark, you get their number, and you go on a date.
Right. Normal progression.
Yeah. And as you gather more data, like you learn they have a dog, or they hate your favorite band, or they chew with their mouth open, the prediction engine gets fed.
Oh.
The dopamine levels out because the mystery is being solved and reality sets in. But in our coffee shop scenario, the person vanishes. The data stream is abruptly cut off.
So you're left hanging.
Right. So you have this massive spike of dopamine, this intense biological drive to seek, and absolutely no target to hit. Your brain registers this as a prediction error.
A prediction error. Wait, so the brain is treating this missing stranger the same way it would treat, say, a physical threat or a missing vital resource in the wild?
On a neurological level, yes. Evolutionary biology wired us to pay extreme attention to unresolved loops. In our ancestral environment, ignoring an unexplained rustle in the bushes or an unresolved pattern could be really dangerous.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, our brains evolved to hyperfixate on incomplete data until a conclusion is reached. So when this highly charged, dopamine-fueled interaction abruptly ends with zero resolution, your brain is trapped in a powerful neurological loop.
Wow.
The sudden absence of the person forces your mind to play that single, solitary moment on repeat, desperately trying to extract new data from a closed file.
So that explains the sheer exhaustion of it. It's just playing on loop. You're like, what did they mean when they smiled at that exact second? Did I stand weird? Was there a ring on their finger?
Exactly.
But the reality is, There are no more clues. The dataset is permanently closed.
And to anyone listening to this right now who has ever felt irrational or entirely unmoored because they couldn't stop hyperfixating on a 5-minute interaction with a stranger,
Oh.
this is the physiological reality of what is happening.
It's not your fault.
Right, your brain's machinery is actually working perfectly. It's just caught in a modern scenario that offers no resolution. It's trying to close a loop that cannot be closed.
Okay, I understand the machinery of it, the dopamine, the prediction error, the open loop. But I have to push back on the next concept the text introduces, because this is where we cross from neurology into what the source calls the psychology of obsession.
Okay, let's hear it.
The text asks, why does a stranger feel like a missing piece? And honestly, I struggle with the logic of that phrase. How can a complete stranger be a missing piece?
Well,
We don't even know their name. For all we know, they're incredibly rude to waiters, or they have completely incompatible life goals, or they are just a terrible listener. It feels kind of illogical to assign that much emotional weight to an entirely unknown variable.
it is entirely illogical.
Yeah.
But, obsession is rarely born from logic.
Fair point.
When the text talks about a stranger feeling like a missing piece, it's acknowledging that this feeling is not actually about the stranger's true identity. You just pointed out that they are an unknown variable. Psychologically speaking, they are a blank canvas. And because you have an absolute lack of real-world, friction-filled information about them, your mind is free to project all of its deepest, most unmet desires onto that canvas.
But doesn't the brain require some evidence to do that? I mean, it can't just invent a soulmate out of thin air just because someone held a door open and smiled.
It doesn't invent them out of thin air. It uses the tiny fragments it did gather
Yeah.
and extrapolates wildly based on your own internal deficits.
Oh, wow.
This is related to a cognitive bias known as the halo effect. If the stranger had a warm laugh and kind eyes during your 3-minute chat, your brain takes those positive traits and automatically assumes the rest of their personality matches.
It just fills in the blanks.
Exactly. Your brain fills in the blanks. If you are feeling chronically unheard in your daily life, your brain decides that this stranger with the kind eyes was the one person who would have truly listened to you.
That is so specific and so sad.
Right. Or, if your life feels mundane and rigidly structured, this stranger who spontaneously joked with you in line suddenly represents ultimate adventure and freedom.
Ah, so they fit perfectly into the missing piece slot in your psyche because you are unconsciously carving them into that exact shape.
Yes.
Because real people have friction, They have bad days, they forget to take out the trash, they get grumpy. But a vanished stranger, they are flawless. They never have a chance to disappoint you.
Never. And that leads directly to what the source so perceptively calls the cruelty of what if.
Oh, yeah.
Once your brain has carved this stranger into the shape of your missing piece, it begins to construct an alternate timeline.
The what if timeline. This part of the text really hit hard because it explains how this obsession bleeds into mundane daily life.
Yeah.
It is not just a passing thought, it becomes a competing reality.
It is a competing reality,
Yeah.
and it's incredibly difficult to shake. Because you aren't just dwelling on a person, you are dwelling on a pristine, frictionless fantasy where everything went right. What if you had just asked for their number 3 seconds earlier? What if the train doors hadn't closed? In that alternate timeline, your brain decides you fall in love, you solve each other's problems, and you finally feel complete.
And what makes it so jarring is the contrast. You're standing in your kitchen on a Tuesday morning, scrubbing oatmeal out of a bowl, totally stressed about a work deadline, and meanwhile, your brain is running a simulation of this sparkling, perfect, alternate life with the stranger from the train.
It really is cruel.
It's cruel because that alternate timeline can never, ever be verified. You can't test it. If you actually went on a date with them, the fantasy would probably shatter within an hour because you'd realize they talk over you or you have nothing in common.
Exactly.
But because they are gone, the what if remains permanently unblemished.
That contrast is exactly what sustains the obsession. Your real life is messy and full of friction. The what-if timeline is a sanctuary.
Right.
And so together, this psychological projection of the missing piece and the infinite perfection of the what-if timeline turn a passing moment into a heavy, lingering ghost that follows you around.
Wow.
It creates a powerful cognitive dissonance between the life you are living and the flawless phantom life your brain insists you missed out on by mere seconds.
Okay, here's where that's really interesting, because if everything we just discussed is true, if this obsession is fueled almost entirely by an open neurological loop and a lack of real information, and if the missing piece is just a psychological projection of our own unmet needs,
Yeah.
then the focus has to shift entirely inward. If this intense obsession isn't actually about the stranger on the train, then who is it actually about?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we arrive at the ultimate insight of the source material. The text asks what this persistent feeling is actually telling you about yourself.
Right.
When you strip away the romantic illusion of the stranger, what is left standing in the room with you? The text answers this by suggesting that sudden obsession is not a window into a missed future. It is a mirror reflecting your current present.
A mirror. And the text uses a very striking description for this. It refers to the relentless, beast-awakening feeling that accompanies this sudden obsession.
Yes, that phrase.
The first time I read that, it gave me pause. Beast-awakening. That doesn't describe a harmless crush. That describes a massive internal disruption. It implies that something large and consequential was asleep inside you, maybe for years, and this 5-minute encounter just kicked the cage open.
The beast that awakens is not your sudden, overwhelming desire for a person whose last name you don't even know. That is just the symptom.
Okay.
The beast is a dormant part of your own identity. It is a deep-seated need, a buried ambition, or a profound hunger for connection that you have been actively ignoring, suppressing, or simply forgot existed. The stranger was just the alarm clock.
They rang the bell. But the thing that woke up was already inside you.
Precisely. Let's look at a practical example. Imagine you have been living a life that is very safe, very structured, and highly predictable. You have a stable job, a quiet routine, and you have convinced yourself you are perfectly content with this emotional plateau.
Okay, setting the scene.
Then you lock eyes with someone who exudes a chaotic, unpredictable, wildly free energy. You share a moment, they vanish, and suddenly you are consumed by this beast-awakening obsession with them.
Right.
You think you are obsessed with the stranger, but what you are actually obsessed with is this sudden, terrifying realization that you want to be free. You are craving unpredictability. The stranger merely illuminated the safe little cage you built around yourself.
Wow. So you aren't actually mourning the loss of the person. You're mourning the loss of the feeling they sparked in you, because it's a feeling you didn't even realize you were starving for.
Exactly.
The stranger essentially lit up a dark, dusty room in your house, showed you it was completely empty, and then walked out the front door and took the flashlight with them.
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it. You are mourning the sudden visibility of your own emptiness. And acknowledging that requires a tremendous amount of courage.
Because if you acknowledge it, you have to do something about it. To you listening, this is the pivotal takeaway of the whole text.
Yeah.
When you are caught in the grip of it, this sudden obsession just feels like an agonizing distraction.
That hurts.
But if you shift your perspective, it is actually a profound opportunity for self-audit. The distress you feel isn't about the stranger. It's a much-needed internal wake-up call. The stranger was the catalyst, but they are not the destination. You are the destination.
It is much easier to pine after a ghost. It is much easier to sit in the pristine sanctuary of what if and imagine a perfect life with a phantom than it is to look at the beast that just woke up inside you and ask, okay, what do you need? What have I been denying you?
Right, because if you ask that question, you might actually have to change your life. You might have to leave that safe, structured job. You might have to have a difficult conversation with your current partner about feeling unheard. You might have to start taking real risks. And that is far more intimidating and requires far more effort than just daydreaming about someone you met at a coffee shop.
Exactly. The obsession functions in a strange, paradoxical way as a defense mechanism against actual personal growth. As long as you are obsessively trying to solve the puzzle of the stranger, you don't have to do the hard, gritty work of fulfilling your own dormant desires.
You outsource it.
Right. You outsource your need for change onto a phantom.
It's like you are assigning all of your life's required renovations to a ghost, and ghosts don't do heavy lifting.
They certainly don't. They just distract you from the work you need to do yourself.
So what does this all mean? Let's retrace our steps through everything we've uncovered today. We started with the visceral experience of a missed connection, meeting someone, feeling that undeniable shift in the air, and watching them vanish.
Yeah.
We looked at the neuroscience behind it, exploring how the brain's prediction engine treats that sudden disappearance like an unresolved threat or an open loop, flooding us with a dopamine-driven urge to seek answers that simply don't exist.
We then moved into the psychology of obsession, examining how a lack of data turns a stranger into a blank canvas. We project our own deficits onto them, experiencing the halo effect until they become a missing piece.
The ultimate illusion.
Right. This traps us in the what-if timeline, a frictionless fantasy that constantly competes with the messy reality of our daily lives.
And ultimately, we uncovered that this intense, relentless feeling, this awakened beast, isn't a message about the stranger at all. It is an urgent message from ourselves to ourselves.
Mhm.
It is a mirror reflecting the suppressed parts of our identity, revealing the dormant needs and hungers we've been ignoring. We didn't lose a person, we just discovered a missing piece of ourselves.
It is a remarkable journey from a fleeting external moment in a crowded room to a very deep, unavoidable internal reckoning. And it leaves us with an important question to consider. If that intense, beast-awakening feeling of a missing piece is actually an alarm bell ringing from within your own internal landscape, what happens when you finally stop frantically retracing your steps? What happens when you stop desperately searching the crowd for that stranger to reappear and instead start examining the very specific, very real emptiness they briefly lit up inside of you?